And when we come back, Donald Trump's anti-Semitism was on full display in the Oval Office today. We have never seen anything like this. That's next. 79% of Jewish voters voted for Democratic House candidates in last year's election. Today, Donald Trump finally let his anti-Semitism flow freely and publicly when he attacked every one of those 79% of American Jewish voters who vote Democratic.
And I think any Jewish people that vote for a Democrat, I think it shows either a total lack of knowledge or great disloyalty.
We are patiently awaiting condemnation of President Trump's comments from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but he has been strangely silent on this offense against the Jewish people. Netanyahu has chosen to stake the future of Israel not so much anymore on the support from American Jews, which used to be so important to Israel, but more and more on the support of conservative Republicans and Trump Republicans. Surely Benjamin Netanyahu knows that evangelical Christian Republicans are the most fervent supporters of the state of Israel in America, and that is because the formation of the state of Israel and Israeli control of Jerusalem are crucial to the evangelical Christian belief, which has been shared publicly by the Republican Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, that the future of the state of Israel will include the return of Jesus Christ, who will then, in a period that they call the rapture, rule over a world in which everyone living, including all Jews in Israel, will be converted to Christianity. And then that will lead to an absolutely delightful end of the world. Seriously, that is what they believe. And that is why they were thrilled by Donald Trump moving the American embassy to Jerusalem, because they believe that that hastens the day that Jesus Christ will return and bring on the rapture and convert every Jew in Israel to Christianity, every Jew in the world. They believe that. Mike Pompeo, your Secretary of State, believes that. Benjamin Netanyahu knows enough about fanatical Christian belief, about the rapture, to know the role Israel plays in that belief. But he also knows, unlike Mike Pompeo, that the rapture is never going to happen. So he'll take his current political support wherever he can get it. And that's why he's not going to criticize Donald Trump for his anti-Semitic outburst today. After this break, we will be joined by two former undersecretaries of state, Ambassador Wendy Sherman and Richard Stengel.
Let me say this to the president. I am a proud Jewish person. And I have no concerns about voting Democratic. And in fact, I intend to vote for a Jewish man to become the next president of the United States.
During our discussion now, Ambassador Wendy Sherman, she's a former Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs and an MSNBC Global Affairs contributor. Also with us, Richard Stengel, also a former Undersecretary of State in the Obama administration. He's an MSNBC political analyst. And Ambassador Sherman, I want to start with you. This is one of those days where you couldn't see this coming, because the amount of stupidity and just vile sentiment in what the president said today is something that you just can't sit around and imagine. Stupidity is extremely difficult to anticipate.
It's quite extraordinary. You know, loyalty is absolutely an anti-Semitic trope, as you pointed out in your introduction. And this from a president who, after Charlottesville, which happened not so long ago, said that the neo-Nazis who were chanting, "The Jews will not replace us," were very fine people, and that both sides had a point of view. So this is not a president who stands on the side of the Jewish people. And in fact, Lawrence, this takes me back not only as a Jew to wonder whose loyalty he's talking about and to whom that loyalty to be given, my loyalty is obviously to myself, but most importantly to the United States of America. And it takes me back to when John F. Kennedy had to prove that he would answer to the American people, not to the Pope. So we have to be about who we are. We all have an identity, and that identity, first and foremost, is American. So I might say I'm a Jewish American. Someone might say they're an Irish American. Someone might say they're a Catholic American or an evangelical American. But the common denominator in all of that is American. This is anti-Semitism, pure and simple.
Rick Stegall, your reaction to what the president said today?
Well, it's pretty darn loathsome and hard to believe, and it represents Trump's attempt to purge Jewish voters from the Democratic Party. I mean, Jewish voters have been a part of the Democratic Party since the New Deal. They've been loyal Democratic voters. In fact, Donald Trump got 24% of the Jewish vote in his presidential race in 2016. That's less than Mitt Romney got, which was 30, which is even less than what Ronald Reagan got. But this idea, what started with Reagan, was this idea that Republicans could show a fidelity, an inflexible, unconditional fidelity to Israel, a kind of American Zionism, and that would get Jewish supporters and maybe more importantly, even Jewish donors. The problem with that, though, is that Jewish voters often vote and traditionally have voted against their pocketbook, and younger Jewish voters, millennial Jewish voters, don't have that unconditional loyalty to Israel that older Jewish voters do. That's who Donald Trump is trying to get.
Wendy and Rick, I want to go anecdotal for a moment on this, because I know there's a lot of viewers, a lot of people out there who think, oh, Donald Trump can't be anti-Semitic. He can't have any anti-Semitic feelings. He has a Jewish son-in-law, and his daughter then converted to Judaism as part of that marriage. And I think that there are people out there who might not realize that is not the kind of thing that necessarily completely instantaneously erases anti-Semitism within a non-Jewish clan. Wendy, go ahead.
Indeed. You know, I would hope that Ivanka and Jared Trump would speak up, if not publicly, which I wish they would do, to their father. We heard David Harris, head of the American Jewish Committee, which is a very mainstream group, say that this was very dangerous language. The Anti-Defamation League saying this is very dangerous language. Actually, the only group in support of the president is the Republican Jewish Coalition, which simply wants to get him reelected. And as Rick pointed out, this is about election politics. And as you pointed out, this is ultimately about the rapture and about the dream of evangelical voters and the president wanting to hold on to that voter base because his voter base is diminishing by the moment. This is a president who, as you know, today went off the rails about Greenland, went off the rails about Afghanistan, went off the rails about Russia. He has gone off the rails about what it is to be an American.
Rick, just on this point, for viewers who might think that, well, if your daughter marries a Jew and she converts to Judaism, that proves that you can't be anti-Semitic at all. If you're comfortable commenting on that from your own anecdotal experience in the world, I think a lot of Jewish families are aware of intermarriage dynamics that don't exactly eliminate anti-Semitism in the non-Jewish family involved.
No, and I mean, just because his daughter has converted to Judaism doesn't mean that he has converted ideologically to this idea of support for Jews. I mean, he's a kid from Queens. His father, anecdotally, not only didn't like renting to African Americans, he didn't like renting to Jews. He went to a military academy. It was a kind of alien experience to him. Even though he was a real estate developer in New York City, where obviously he was around a lot of Jewish folks, he never really integrated in a way that made people feel comfortable. And I think somehow he uses his own daughter and son-in-law as a kind of trope to attempt to prove that he is not anti-Semitic and is not anti-Jewish. And in fact, it has nothing to do with that. You can be anti-Semitic and have Jewish members of your family. There's much evidence of that.
Wendy Sherman, Rick Stegall, thank you very much for joining us on this latest very strange Trump outburst. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And